Imagine a world where everyone gets paid in $100 bills. It would feel a little ridiculous, wouldn't it? Well, that's kind of what's happening when you pass out gold to your players every time they loot a body, and honestly, if your players can walk into a town and afford to buy out every shop, that can be literally game-breaking and is actually incredibly destabilizing to local economies, but that's for a different video. The point is, I've personally found that giving players too much gold can change the tone of the game in ways that I don't necessarily love. It can make challenges less interesting, it can take away some of the stakes, and honestly, it makes gold itself feel less valuable. So today, I want to talk about why I started scaling back how much gold I give to my players, the impact it's had on my campaigns, and how I approach treasure now. So let's dive into it. When I used to hand out gold like candy, it felt fun at first. Players loved seeing those shiny rewards pile up, but over time that changed and I realized that I was running into a few common mistakes. Well, first of all, it made gold lose its value. When players have endless piles of coin, they stop caring about earning it. There's no excitement when they find another chest of treasure, they loot a body and find another 22 gold pieces. It's just more of the same. And eventually when you get to dragon slaying level, they have access to literal thousands of gold pieces. Second, it made problem solving too easy because if they needed to bribe a guard, they would just throw gold at them. If they needed new armor, they would just buy the best gear that money can get. And suddenly a lot of that creative tension like bartering and improvising or thinking outside of the box just sort of vanishes. And finally, it also just disrupts the narrative tone. If your adventurers are rolling into a struggling village with sacks of gold jingling at their sides, it can feel a little disconnected. It's hard to portray a world where scarcity matters if the party has more wealth than the local lord. And not just that, but unless you have some sort of magical means like a bag of holding, realistically gold coins start to get really heavy really quickly. So where's all that coin even going? After a certain point, it just doesn't make sense. Now, I'm not saying gold has no place in the game, it absolutely does, but for me, the key was making it feel more intentional and impactful, so here's how I approached it. First of all, I give less gold, but I make it count. Instead of handing out gold every time they loot a body, I reserve it for those moments that feel significant, like a dragon's hoard, or a payment for this dangerous mission they just did, or a rare find in a long forgotten vault. When gold becomes rare, finding it feels like a big deal again, right? If someone was just handing you wads of hundreds, that would be amazing, but when you're Jeff Bezos rich, it's just paper. Gold is only one of many types of pieces. In reality, gold is rare, but remember, there isn't only $100 bills. There's the Jacksons and the Washingtons and the other presidents. Give out more copper and more silver. This is an easy fix and helps make gold feel more important to find. And when they're looting bodies, maybe they find one gold piece or two. Save the big piles of gold for places where it makes sense, like a noble's home or a bank or businesses. Let them save up slowly but surely. Now, if you really want to make your campaign a delight, you need Describe. Now, instead of talking to you about it, I decided it's probably better just to show you. So here's 30 seconds of ambient sounds brought to you by Describe. Don't skip, it's good for you. The next thing you can do is create what I like to call a sort of quote-unquote banking, not baking system, a banking system for the players. If they want to exchange gold, they have to go and do that. A bank will take their copper and their silver and exchange it for gold for a fee. Or maybe they have to sign up for a checking and a savings account with like an APR of 2.3%.
Goliath National Bank! Member FDIC.
Also, a really fun consequence of this is that you can also create black markets for those goods or services or banking services that come complete with their little shady characters. A fence that will take stolen goods but will want 20% on top of that price. Well, now you have a shady NPC that you can use from your stories. The next thing I like to do is create gold sinks or places to spend their money. This can be done by introducing merchants or selling unique or custom items like potions. They can buy enchanted gear or rare spell components, offer services like magical item repairs, custom weapon forging, spell tutoring. Players can see their gold turning into tangible story-enhancing rewards. And a big one for me are making sure that my players have those consumables for spells like Revivify. Even fun things like magical tattoos or enchanted food that makes their mouth feel weird, or whatever unique thing you can create to get them to spend their money. I'm not even kidding, my party used to spend hundreds on glowing rocks. Literally, a street merchant cast light on some rocks and single-handedly became the Billy Mays of the fantasy world. This way, gold becomes less of a hoardable resource and more of a tool that players need to manage. And then there's alternative rewards, right? You can give out things that aren't gold. I started thinking about treasure beyond coins and gems, and instead of gold, players might find unique items, right? Magic items, rare ingredients, books like ancient tomes or cursed items, making alliances or finding some sort of political leverage. They can also find maps to like secret locations that will further the story along. These sorts of alternative rewards can tie directly into the story and give players something to strive for that isn't just money. Now, what did that actually do for my campaigns? Well, scaling back on the gold wasn't just about fixing the economy, it fundamentally changed how my players interacted with my game. Players got more creative because they didn't have endless gold to solve every single problem. Players had to think on their feet. They started bargaining, they started role-playing, they were taking risks in ways that made the game more engaging for everybody, and when they did find gold or other treasures that I might pass out, it felt like a real accomplishment. Players really celebrated those moments because they were rare and they were hard-earned. And the world itself felt more grounded because there was a balanced economy that made the world feel more believable. Struggling towns actually felt like they were struggling, and wealthier NPCs stood out as powerful figures. And the biggest takeaway for me at the end of all of this is that reducing gold didn't take away from the fun. It didn't diminish the fun. It made the game richer in other ways. Players enjoyed earning those unique items or unlocking those favors and feeling like their actions actually mattered more than their wallets. Now, at the end of the day, every DM has their own style. If gold fountains work for your game, that's awesome. But for me, cutting back on gold has been one of the best changes I've made. It has brought tension, creativity, and depth back into my sessions in ways that I really didn't expect when I started to kind of pare back. Now, if you're thinking about trying it out, I would say just start small, introduce a gold sink, reward players with something other than coins, or just scale back a little and see how it feels. What's your take on gold in D&D? Do you think it's essential, or do you have your own way of handling treasure? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear how you approach it. Now, if you remember the last time we checked in on our buddy Tobias, he was trapped in some sort of magical cage inside of a creepy castle in the Feywild, and it's your job to make sure that he can get out. Spinesauce2687 said, I'm gonna look for a power source for anything that I can see generating the field. With a 14, maybe. A -1 though, because my wisdom is a little low. With a 14, you look around, you don't see any sort of magical power source. There's no cable sticking out of this thing. Something else is generating it, and you're not sure what. Marco Seldo says, Tobias, at last. I'll check for traps, but I rolled a 4. Alright then. A total of 7. I'm not very good at this, clearly. Well, Marco, you don't see any traps on this thing. And Sigil Wizard says, for Tobias, the cage might be easily dispelled with the casting of Dispel, but it seems too easy. Something must be afoot here. I'll look over the room as thoroughly as possible with a 17 on investigation check. Very nice. If there doesn't seem to be anything else, I'll cast Dispel Magic on the cage. As you're checking for traps, you're dispelling the cage, the whole room starts to shake. You feel dust fall around you. Bits of the roof of this almost cathedral-like looking room start to crash around you. You hear a very low rumbling. I need everybody to roll initiative. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Forge on, my friends, and we'll see you next time, adventurers.